Call to order the Dyer Planning Commission meeting of July 21st, 2025. You all stand and pledge to the flag. Pledge of allegiance to the
flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sue, roll call.
Yes. Pat.
Present.
Mary. Here. Scott.
Here.
Annette. Here. Bob.
Here.
Tom.
Here, present. Moving on, citizen input. Anyone, any resident from the town of Dyer that would like to make any comments, please, just your name, address, and come up to the podium. Seeing none, move on to consent agenda, which consists of the approval of the May 19th, 2025 minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, including the approval of the May 2025 Plan Commission minutes, meeting minutes.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seeing we have no old business, we'll move on to new business. Item 7.1, Old Top Homes Public Hearing, primary plat for the Parkside subdivision.
Mr. President, if I could, so they had today's a public hearing for the primary plat for Parkside subdivision. They advertised in the newspaper, they sent out the certified mail, so everything's ready to go. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of history on this. They did have to come before the BZA to get a use variance, and then that was forwarded to the town council, and then the town council made their final say, and they approved the use for townhomes on this property. So that's kind of the history of what has happened so far with this development. And tonight we're here for primary platting. And there's a letter. It also includes parkland stuff that's in the letter there that you got. And then if they were to get this, the next thing they would do, they'd be looking for site plan approval. And they actually submitted that for review. So they're under review of like sanitary, stormwater and water to make sure everything meets all the recommendations. So that's kind of where we're at with the development.
Okay. Seeing that this is a public hearing.
You can call the petitioner up first and let him present to you, and then you can open it for public hearing.
Please announce your name.
Yep, good evening, Kevin Casco, Old Top Homes, 8051 Ricker Avenue, in Indiana. As Brian mentioned, here tonight to seek primary plat approval for our Parkside subdivision. Just give a recap of the project itself. It's located on approximately 5.5 acres directly west of Central Park, north of the Cedarhurst Senior Living Facility, and east of Calumet Avenue. It contains 62 of our rear-loaded townhomes, as well as several amenity areas, which include outdoor gaming areas, gas fire pits, gas grill stations, numerous seating areas, extra parking, and extensive landscaping throughout. Since we were here last year in February, as Brian pointed out, we were getting the special use exception to allow townhomes in the Calumet Avenue district, as well as a few developmental variances, all of which were approved. And if we wrap that up in May, we then move into the final engineering stage of the project and submit materials in June. So everything has been under review since then. I've been in regular contact with staff in the last week or so. It's my understanding there's no comments on the primary plat, so it should be able to be voted on tonight. And then we'll continue to work with staff to resolve any comments on the final engineering and site plan prior to the August 15th meetings, and hopefully receive approval on that staff. There's also two other items we wanted to address this evening. Can you go to the next? Yes. The site plan.
This one.
Yep. So the first item is an easement that we will be requesting from the RDC to allow for a fire lane to be installed on the Central Park property. Over the course of meeting with staff, the fire department had requested that we provide the fire lane along our east property line to allow emergency vehicles to access the front side of the townhome units that do face Central Park. So the easement itself is 35 feet wide, and with the actual pavement being 25 feet wide, which accommodates any vehicles that the fire department may need for an emergency call. There will also be a turnaround for the vehicles at the south end of that easement. The intent is for this only to be used during emergency situations, so we'll have no parking signs posted along the fire lane, as well as collapsible bollards at the Central Park Boulevard intersection. We do plan on attending the August 21st RDC meeting to, get acceptance of that easement. And then in addition to acquiring the easement itself, we will be responsible for the installation, so there's no cost to the town for that particular improvement. And then once it's complete, it'll be town property that they're free to use as they see fit. So for instance, if the area south of the dog park is still used for, parking for Summerfest, then they might choose to put those bollards down and have traffic, use the fire lane to get it. So that's the first item. The second item I wanted to address was the, proposed park contribution, for the project. So I was at the park board 2 weeks ago to go over what we requested for that contribution, but it ultimately received an unfavorable recommendation. We did want to cover that request again tonight and then have further dialogue on that if necessary. So each group of buildings that we have are separated by amenity areas. So these areas are private and owned and maintained by the HOA for the community, not dedicated to the town of Dyer for public use. So these areas are located south of buildings 1 and 2, and then 5 and 6. And that include amenities that we typically install for our condo communities. So that includes outdoor seating, outdoor grill areas, fire pits, and game spaces. There's a handful of renderings of the amenities on the next 2 slides, and I believe in your packets to get a better idea of what they'll look like once they're built. So with that in mind, I'll give an explanation of what we're proposing for that park contribution. So Section 10-79 of your subdivision control ordinance requires us to provide a certain acreage of park space dedication based on a calculation. So it specifies that 2.83 residents per unit multiplied by 62 units, which is what we have in this project, gives us roughly 175 people who will live in the community. So that number is then multiplied by 0.020 to calculate the required acreage. In this case, that gets you 3.51 acres of space that we would need to give to the town. As I mentioned previously, we only have 5.5 acres for the whole project. So donating 3.5 acres for park space is definitely not feasible for us. So we're proposing to give the Parks Department a fee in lieu of the land dedication. So over the course of meeting with Brian and Justin over the last month and a half or so, we've discussed this, and then they tasked us with figuring out what an alternative to that land dedication would look like. So we've determined that 3.51 acres multiplied by a market value of $50,000 an acre would yield a financial contribution of $175,500 if we had no open space or amenities planned for the project. However, we are providing 0.95 of an acre of open space to be owned and maintained by the community HOA. So that acreage multiplied by $50,000 per acre gives you $47,500, which we would view as a credit towards that $175,500. After you factor in this credit, we're left with $128,000. We also have viewed the usable portion of our open space areas, so the grill stations, fire pits, outdoor seating, and game areas, having an approximate value of $660,000. We would request a 10% credit for the cost of that improvement, or those improvements, for $66,000 total. So then after factoring in that credit, we're left with $62,000 for our proposed financial contribution, which is the request that I presented to the park board, and then which we would open for discussion on today. So again, I just wanted to run through that in detail to give a more comprehensive idea of our request and the thought process that we applied to that to get to that figure. We're aware that the town has several respective projects that these funds would be dedicated towards, and we're more than happy to provide our fee to help make that happen. But we're just looking to get a final number sort of set in stone for that. So with that, we'd glad to take any questions or comments, and then to open up the public hearing.
I have a question for Counselor. The RDC easement that's to be requested, is that relevant for plat consideration at this time?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the plat they're submitting.
Well, it won't be part of this plat because it's not on this piece of property. The easement that they're requesting will be on the plat that's on the town of Dyer property. So they're requesting that, so this plat won't have anything to do with that easement. The town, we're the ones that want that fire lane in there, so that would be at the RDC for that easement, and that would just be some paperwork that goes over and gets recorded on top of the plat that's already there.
Okay.
And if I could, just for past experiences, in case people don't know, we've had a couple subdivisions come into the town of Dyer. The last one we just had was Meadowbrook subdivision. And we had a conversation just like we are with Olthoff here and about parkland, and we didn't want more parkland. And so what they did is they have some private spaces, just like Olthoff does, and they're putting a gazebo there and a walking path for Meadowbrook. Another one is Pennington subdivision. That was an Olthoff subdivision that they did years ago. And you may remember they gave, if you've ever been out there, there's some walking area, private walking area, like 2 acres in the center that has a private walking trail. So that was for the residents of that subdivision, but it counted as, recreation space for parkland. And then they also gave us some money on top of that. And it was, at that time, it was $26,000. So this has happened in the past before for some of our projects is all I wanted to note.
Thank you, Ryan.
Board members can individually ask the presenter questions before you open for public.
Commissioners?
Is there any chance that could increase the amount of money that you would be donating?
Yes, we are willing to discuss that.
Okay,
I mean, that was kind of, seemed to be the tenor of the park board, when I was there.
yes,
Certainly, they had a disagreement over the
yes,
proposed amount. So yes, we're open to discussing.
Okay. bargainable.
Yes.
Thank you.
And when would that discussion timing be appropriate?
And ideally tonight, if we wanna.
It would have to happen tonight if we're gonna act on it.
That was when you should have the discussion. The public hearing is for members of the public to come up, and then after the public hearing closes, you can discuss among yourselves what you want to do before you make a motion.
Is there an amount that has been discussed?
The only one that has been put forth is just the one that we presented to the park board, and that is just explained now. We haven't had any other further discussion with staff since then.
How did we arrive at a market value of $660,000 and we want a 10% credit for that, $50,000 per acre? It's a $50,000 per acre, which gets paid per acre, or how did you come up with the value of the land?
It was just a value that we assigned to the land, I think based on surrounding values or values that we've dealt with in the past. And then, yeah, we just, again, we're tasked with trying to apply some logic to arrive at that number. So that's what I run through for you. And then the 660,000 is the approximate cost of everything that we will be installing for the immense areas.
I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but would it be possible to say your comment for public hearing, just procedure?
I'd like to ask, as long as the director of the park department is there, I know that you've got a couple of projects coming up. We have a number that would be helpful to you to support those.
I don't know that the 62,000 or whatever number was earmarked for the parks anyways.
Right, but I'm just
Just
saying.
as a side note, I think that would just go into our general fund.
I would make an observation also. The purpose of the park dedication is for the town at large to benefit. What I understand this to be is non-public spaces. So if you're applying the credit, that might be something you want to consider, is that these aren't publicly, they're for the benefit of the residents of the town as a whole. Just something to consider.
Any other thoughts or questions from the commission?
Well, I mean,
Patrick?
we have to come up with a number if we don't like 62.
And do we do this discussion now?
I think you gotta,
I see what the center would be amenable to, and then whatever you approve in your motion, then would be what the final number is.
Well, I just have a thought that it seems that that our town is a a bedroom community, primarily consisting of single family dwellings. And when I look at the Dyer ordinance, 10-7-9, it seems that for a higher density type of the development, that the ordinance doesn't really, it doesn't seem in line with a higher density type of a development, where whether we consider these townhomes or more like row houses, it almost prohibits row house development within our community. Because again, if we're looking at the acreage versus the land use, if the acreage of 5.5, it's coming down to 3.51 acres of donated land plus retention area. There's not really use for the development. It would seem also that the margins are different on a higher density project, that the formula has been adequate for historical uses, but for this particular project, it's unique to the town, at least since I've been president of the planning commission. You know, I see a little bit of a different view on what's what would be an appropriate factor to go into the formula. Now those are just my personal thoughts. And I understand that this is for the town in general. But I believe also that the variance that was approved by the BZA, by the council, was in part to limit the density and ask for these amenities that are part of this unit that weren't part of the original plans. Had no idea of the value of those units. I think you marked down 660,000. I guess was going to be about $500,000. I know they've got an idea of the value of the land and how expensive construction is. So in my mind, somewhat this has already been taken into consideration, that dedication of that open space for those residents, you know, adjacent to a 62-acre park. There had been a meeting of the minds, at least up to that point. So those are my comments at this point.
Just to clarify, the variance that was approved was for use as a town.
Use.
Separate petition for development standards variance with the specific attributes of this development, and it's still pending, or has that been by the BC? I thought it was a tabled condition on approval of the use variance and then the plan.
Yes. And it's since been approved because of the use variance got approved.
Okay.
It was subject to.
That's good. It's, the use variance is separate from the development standards variance.
So if I were to think of us, I would think maybe giving that credit on the 660 might already be kind of built into, because that's gonna be only for the residents and not for any public. Maybe it shouldn't count towards that payment, the 10%.
So the request then just be to not factor in that particular figure.
That's a thought I have. I don't know if anybody agrees or disagrees with that. Which is almost doubling the amount they'd be paying in.
Was that 128 something in the ballpark that you guys had talked about?
No, that's just how the math ended up working out. So it's
No, I mean for tonight, we would come up with some number. You probably have some number in your head that would be agreeable to the Altough folks.
Make us an offer. Yeah.
That's not debating.
Ed Reckon, both homes, 8051 Wicker Avenue, St. Genevieve. I mean, ideally, we'd probably like to fall somewhere between 128 and 62 of what we offered. I mean, you could bring an air car salesman in here, but if you want to split the difference.
Yeah.
That might probably be fine with us as well. You know, we do feel like the amenities and things that we are putting in this, you know, help sell this property. So we'd like to see a little bit of credit for it, at least. That's why we suggested 10%, but you know, it has to be something less than that.
But you have done these in other properties,
not to this
No, I can-
extent, I would say.
Well, not to deviate, my biggest concern with this project came forth was the wind shear in parks. I wanted to see, class 1 hurricane level roofing. I wanted to see siding that was not typical. I forget the proper terminology for what's being applied.
Composite siding.
Composite siding. So we wanted higher quality units, and I know that's driving cost and to some degree that it impacts profitability, but it also makes it even feasible to be up for consideration. So I think it's been fantastic how you've worked with the planning commission. And at least as far as my thoughts go, with the comments that we've heard so far.
Right.
I like the idea of splitting the difference. To me, that seems fair. Thoughts?
That's 95,000.
I'll take your word for that. I got it around there, yeah.
According to the latest Apple iOS, yeah, it's,
I actually feel it's fair in favor of the town because again, I don't have the background for the particular ordinance and for, higher density developments. It makes them more challenging if we use the same math that's been used historically for subdivisions where I don't know what the average house per acreage is, but 4 to 5 houses per acre. And it would seem to me that in part, the land dedication is so that those neighborhoods could have access to parkland. And yet, again, we're adjacent to a 62-acre park. However, as Counselor, suggested, this is a benefit for the county in general, or other needs that development helps us fulfill. So.
Make an offer.
That's why.
Yeah.
I'm fine with Mr. Starkey. If that gets us past this comment, that's what we're willing to move forward with. Yeah, we do, a lot of these costs are on the plan, to Mr. Brown's point. A lot of these costs have come as a little bit of a shock to us, fire lane and park countries, like that flows weren't part of our original thoughts, but obviously we want to do this project here in town with plan. We put that either successful. So we're willing to work with you guys to make that happen.
Fire lane itself, is it simply an easement or is it gonna be an improvement?
It will be an improvement, will be forward.
What will be the construction?
In an asphalt hard surface road.
Just curious, what will be the hypothetical cost of that?
It's probably somewhere between 350 and 350.
And do you see the town benefiting from that improvement aside from the access to development?
Sure, potential for you to have access, it can use it for other opportunities, things like, don't know, goes east to the towards these sliding hills and things like that. Maybe for, as Kevin mentioned,
Emergency services?
first services or even access to additional parking for someone that's to do that. Well, there's potential there. Obviously, we're just putting it in requirement access.
Understood.
Mr. President,
Your motion?
no, we have to open the public hearing first and call 3 times for comment.
At this time, we'd like to open the floor to a public hearing. Ms. Ogrzewicz?
So, I'm Jenna Ogrzewicz. I represent the other Ward 3 in the town council. My address is 807 Graydon Place. And I just wanted to ask the presenter if you had a copy of the HOA regulations that are being planned, if you have a copy of those for us. The bylaws.
Don't have them in hand, but we do have a draft copy of their all, so we have it for.
Okay, and that involves how the open space in question will be governed and regulated. Yes, you could forward that, that's great, and all that.
Yeah, I'd like to see it as well.
Would any other members of the public like to comment? Again, well, comments from the public are welcome. If we have any, please step up to the podium and name your name and address. Hearing none. Let's move to close this public hearing.
Can bring it back for discussion or for a motion. It's up to you, Mr. President.
The public hearing is done.
It's closed.
Public hearing is closed. Do we have a motion?
I just have a question about these, the condos or what are they, condos or are they homes, townhomes?
Yep.
Will there be something inside the bylaws for this association? I mean, are they gonna have a percentage of rentals in these, or are they just one owner and no rentals?
So the units themselves will be sold individually, be simple, they're not gonna be marketed as rentals. We just don't do that, we sell to own units. There will be language in there to restrict rentals as much as we legally can. Obviously, fair housing laws do not permit us to fully restrict rentals, but it's as restricted as it possibly can.
I know you could list it in your bylaws that states in there rentals only due to dire need or family, you know?
Yes,
So will it state something like that, or are you gonna have rentals open up to the public?
no, it will be, as you
As-
pointed
okay.
out, yes, hardship, or yes, a family member will be allowed in the town.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to accept the primary plat as presented with a change in the financial contribution to an amount of $95,000 for the park contribution.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Sue?
Pat,
Aye.
Mary,
Hi.
Beth,
Aye.
Jeanette,
Hi,
Bob,
Aye.
Tom.
Aye. Moving on, any and all commission members, any thoughts or comments that haven't been addressed at this meeting?
Other than just a reminder, we're meeting back here on Wednesday.
Thank you.
This is.
At 5.
Yeah.
Like to make a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.